course
And
it is. It's
yeah,
corporate living. I mean, it's it's the 9 to 5. It's
yeah,
kind of just the grind.
it is. Yeah, exactly that. And obviously, it is getting better. But when it comes to mental health and being, having a bit of a person centered opinion on helping people to grow and help people to stay mentally um, comfortable. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but mentally healthy within reason. We get pushed sometimes, but
Just having the right mindset, because the thing is, if you know that this is the way that you're going to be able to survive.
yeah,
You see, the issue over here is there's a stereotype that
mm,
you're a starving artist, and that means that you have to be like Schoolhouse Rock, like at the bottom,
mm,
and build yourself up and get there. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. It's not realistic at all. I mean, you have
mm,
to be practical. I mean, if you want to live in this society, you need to have something stable,
mm.
because I don't want to live on the streets. Do you want to live on the streets? I don't
No,
think
no,
so.
no, 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 no. But there's obviously it takes its toll on people. Um, and so a lot of the work that I'm doing is I'm sort of learning a lot and trying to integrate it into everything that I'm interested in. I'm trying to find a bit of a common law because I do believe there's like a common law in or a common theme on what this life's about. And I think a lot of it in certain places it sort of gets pushed to the side a little bit, and maybe that's maybe being overcritical on the way I see things, but there seems to be an essence where it kind of humanity gets pushed to the side, like our humanity as people, and then we end up just being cracking the whip or driving,
Or getting lost,
getting lost in it, exactly, things like
getting
that.
lost in the groove.
Exactly. Well, that's a positive way to get lost, isn't it? Getting lost in a
Exactly.
groove. That's the way we all want to get lost, ideally.
Mm. So, Chris, the thing is, you know, there's this idea in Buddhism, and it's called karma,
Yeah.
and people have this very vanilla, very wonder bread version of it,
Mm.
because it's like, oh, karma's a bitch. There's more to that. In Buddhism, karma is different levels. There's
Okay.
different levels of karma, meaning we're different levels of thought and thinking of where you are as a person right now, meaning trials and tribulations in life, success and happiness, attributes, and self fulfillment, like, for example,
Mhm.
caring for another person or being there for another. But it's not about the universe repaying you.
No.
It's all about you taking those steps. And because you're taking those steps, you're creating these possibilities for you.
Yeah, I'm sort of. I think the common misconception with karma is that we sort of see it as this universe being some kind of a justice system where, if you do shit things, then shit things will happen to you, and if you do good things, then good things will happen to you. And there's kind of some universe judge that's dishing out either reward or punishment depending on how you treat others and the actions and decisions that you take. Which is kind of us sort of adopting that theme to suit our existing way of thinking, because we love a justice system. We love to punish people if they've, not behaved in ways we'd like them to behave. Um, but actually, the karma in Buddhism is, it's almost such a simple thing that
Yeah.
we fall into the trap of overcomplicating it. Um, Karma is generally just the culmination of everything that's happening, and the fact that um, how you relate to everything that's happening around you is because of you, essentially. And that doesn't mean that everything is genuinely your fault. It doesn't mean that you're to blame for everything. Um, but basically, you've kind of followed this path, and it's accepting that how we feel about everything is generally because of the path that we've either chosen or been forced to walk down. Um,
Yeah,
does that make sense?
it does, and it's also weird as an individual. The thing is that you don't have to be a collective. You don't have to be inclusive. You don't have to be accepting and willing. See, the thing is that it all starts. See, thing for me is that I was raised as a Jew. I was raised in a religious home, and I left religion at 17, and I started looking. I'm a secular Buddhist, so I don't practice it religiously. I just follow it through passage,
Okay.
and it's not. You want to talk about old timey text, sure, but it's very practical because it allows you as an individual to kind of hone in and focus into the world that's around you. It's going around all the time. Because here's the thing, you get one life. I don't know what happens after this. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Does it matter? Does it matter when you die? No. Are you there? No. You're dead. So
Mm-hmm.
why are we so focused on, building all of the success, getting to 60, relaxing, and then waiting until we die? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of life is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have a different way of thinking about it because it's interesting because we both identify. Obviously, you identify as a Buddhist. It sort of fits your model of part of who you are, and me. And I see it a little bit differently. So the way I see it is that the way I've practiced, it's quite hard to put it in words actually, but the way I've practiced is kind of breaking down um, everything that we differentiate with our mind. So it's everything is our mind that essentially says that one thing is different to another, and it's our mind that says that us as people are separate from everything that's around us. But if you recognize that it's actually just the mind that's doing that and you take that away, you can actually think, okay, well, if my mind wasn't doing that, then what's left? If my mind isn't telling me that I'm separate from everything around me, so you got this dualism happening, then what's actually left? And what you get to see is there's there's not necessarily a separation going on, and you can do that. You can actually go really down the rabbit hole and do that with like now. The concept of what is now and what is in the future and what is in the past.
Well,
And
because the idea of time. See, here's the interesting thought.
yeah,
Time is not real. There's no
no,
such thing as time. It's made up. How do we know this? Go out into space. If you go out into space, you realize your clock doesn't matter anymore.
mm,
It doesn't.
mm-hmm.
Because the distance from one planet to another could be a billion light years.
Yeah,
Billion light years. That's like 400 generations of your family.
mm,
So the idea of now, yeah, it's complicated because you're eliminating yourself from the boundaries that surround you. But at the same time, we have those boundaries because, like you said, if your mind stops thinking and your mind stops doing, then what? What are you supposed to do then?
mm, yeah. So, I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because I mean, I don't know if you're interested in following like all of the physics documentaries and all of the stars and stuff. And I love the concept that like the closer you get to the speed of the light, time somehow slows down anyway. So, and it's meaningless. And when you think of actually all we have is now. All that we actually have is now. The future is just our mind thinking what's going to happen, and the past is just a culmination of memories. Um, but
People
if
remembered.
yeah, remember then. But if you all you have is now, then it also makes itself like almost inconsequential. Like time doesn't matter if all you've got is now. Then it's really like this with a capital T is all there
Right.
is. Yeah, that's all there is. Um, but going back to the karma thing, because one of the big drivers for me where I've studied Buddhism and I've studied martial arts and really gone down the mental health and gotten into counseling and learning how to help people. And it's one of the big things is, why are we helping people? What is it within ourselves that somehow knows, and maybe it's not within everybody, but what is it within ourselves that somehow knows to be good to someone, to be kind, is better than otherwise? So because let's say there's a cake on the table, and you know, if I really love that cake, it would be great if I just ate the whole thing for myself. But if there's another couple of people in the room, something within me says that it's probably a good idea to share the cake, and it makes me feel better about sharing the cake.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a silly example, but it still stands. That what is it
Right. I
that's that?
mean, but remember this though, as humans, we have a skill called
Mm,
compassion.
mm,
Compassion delves into other feelings and emotions. I feel like compassion leads to sorrow. It also leads to selfless love,
mm,
kindness, care. I, I I think it's more of we seeing through our own eyes, viewing on another person. Because I can
mm,
tell you, as a person that's lost I lost my dad a few years ago. When
sorry.
somebody tells me they lose a parent, it's a lot easier for me to relate and comfort them because I've been through it. I know that experience. Like you gave that cake example. You're not going to eat the whole cake because there's people that you care about that probably would want to share as well. And you
Mm,
eating that would be selfish.
yeah, yeah, and breaking down the differences in our head. So, what separates things, what separates us from somebody else. If you were able to take away that separation, you can argue that actually, if there is no separation without the mind, then me and you and everybody is the same thing, is all part of the same thing. And I believe in what you're saying. So obviously, we start with empathy. We start with empathy. We start with the ability for us to somehow feel the feelings or connect with the feelings that someone else is going through. Now, there's no physical reason why we should be able to do that. If if you look at someone's feelings, and it feels like we're being almost crude to say that my emotions and feelings are just a combination of chemicals. But if we were to put our biologist cap on, you can explain it like that. And me being a separate person to you, there's no biological reason why I should be feeling the same feelings that you are. And yet somehow um, we're able to do that. So obviously, when you mentioned losing your own parent, I felt sad for a while. Yeah, I felt sad because I've still got thankfully both my parents, but I was still able to feel a little bit of sadness. It rose
A
up in me.
different it's a different relatability
Yeah.
because, and again, I think this is the beauty about humankind, is the fact that we are all the same species wise. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
genetically speaking, boiling it down, we are the same. We're made out
Mm-hmm.
of the same compounds. But as individuals,
Mm.
we're so different from one another. And that's
Oh
why
yeah.
I think that's what makes us really special. That is an excellent example of it. Like the fact that you have both parents and you can relate, and also the fact that you have somebody that has either one parent that's dead or both that can relate. All of them having a different feelings and emotions towards
Mm.
it.
Yeah. We're all sort of unique fingerprints, aren't we? And yet
Yeah.
somehow there's like a root connection that we can all access, which is like beautiful when you think about it. If you think of 8 billion people on this planet, and yet somehow we all have this connection, and you can look at it whether it's two people having a one-on-one conversation, and I can tap in, and you have different degrees of skill in that. Some people are incredibly empathetic, and some people, for some reason, they may have blocks or may not be able to access that skill for whatever reason.
Well,
Uh,
believe it or not, actually,
yeah,
there is a reason behind it. I don't know
go
if you
on,
know this.
go on.
So, in the first 3 years of childhood, is the most crucial. It's when the child is developing emotions, feelings, self
Mm.
expression, language. If a child is not given love and compassion and expression at in those first 3 years,
Mhm.
what they've done a study, they found that people become less empathetic. They have less empathy towards others, which
Yeah.
kind of makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah, it does. In counselling, in person-centered counselling, we have what we call the 3 degrees um, of when we have like an impasse, which is sort of a part that's within ourselves that conflicts with another part within ourselves.
Right.
For example, let's say I'm getting very sad about watching, or I'm getting very sad about something I'm watching on the telly. But let's say that there's another part in me that's maybe parental driven that is, you shouldn't be getting emotional. You're a man. Men don't cry. So as a human, the child within me wants to cry, and yet the parental message that I may carry around with me says you shouldn't cry. So we get like this impasse. There is a third level impasse which happens from birth up to the first few months, and some people argue that actually your emotional capabilities are happening before you're even born. A lot of it is happening even while you're being carried by the mother. Um, the problem is if we these can actually still affect the decisions we make and the thoughts we have and how we feel towards certain things. But from a counselling perspective, it can be very difficult to access that level of entity because
It's so
there's no
deep.
it's deep, but there's no words associated with it
Right.
because it's when everything has been pure raw emotion. And it can be something about your cry, or and that maybe the parent hasn't been able to, or has consistently been unable to tend to the child. So the infant or may learn actually, you know, it may have a script that, if I cry, nobody's going to come, kind of thing. Nobody's going to come and soothe. And that kind of we can carry that with us. But like when you get to our age, so I'm 40 odd years old, I
You don't look
still,
it.
yeah. Oh well, thank you very much. it's because I got a fuzzy camera. I need to clean the camera, maybe.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So yeah, but I might have that drives the actions. I might sort of have this thing that doesn't allow emotion to come up because I don't expect it to do any good. But for a counselor to access that within me, we need to kind of somehow go way back, and sometimes you can't, you never access it. You don't know. You just have to kind of acknowledge that something's there.
Right.
Um, but
It's
yeah,
I think though it's more because I can tell you that when you deal with trauma from a young age, I've done different types of therapy. I've been to like an actual therapist in office. I've done psychedelics. I've done walks. I did this in Israel. I went with a few. We walked in the desert,
right.
and it was for meditation. Like you just be a part of the open desert in the air, and it was in the middle of the night. And sometimes you need to give things time, and I don't always think you need to give it a word or describe it. I
Mm.
think as you just need to be able to process it in your head and realize this is what it is. This is how it makes me feel.
Yeah, I mean, time. The old saying is time is the greatest healer. That's one of the sayings we have. Um, yeah, I do feel that connection as well in relationship is another great healer. I think being able to have this secure space and safe space where we can talk to someone and actually allow our stuff to be vocalized, because it gives us two things. It gives us a bit of an anchor where we get to be able to maybe challenge the messages and the feelings that we're carrying around with us. Um, but also it allows things to be validated. Sometimes if we solitary and we don't share things, there can't really be any validation other than what we do to ourselves, what we sort of validate ourselves. So having that connection as well as time is makes a massive difference to people.
Yeah, especially being able to open up, because the thing is that when you have those relationships and people in your life you can talk to,
Hmm.
you know, you don't know what they're going to tell you. The thing is, they're also giving you over knowledge and experience from their own life
Mm.
that you may not even know or have. So there's that added benefit from that connection you're having. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's again, it's like going back to how we're all connected somehow, and how we're kind of we're all sort of trying to figure it out together as well, and we don't always realize it. We have massive conflict going on in the world, don't we? And yet somehow we're all trying to figure the same thing out somehow, I believe. Do you think the same?
Sometimes
Yeah.
depends if I'm in the office or if I'm not.
Mm. Do you think there's something that we're all ultimately trying to figure out? Do you think there's something we've all got to learn?
I don't think there is anything to figure out
Yeah.
because we we live on this planet in this
Mm.
universe. It's
Mm.
massive. And we always like to see the broad I like too. I like to see the broad picture. But I also like to go back to the idea like you said earlier is just live in the moment. There's so much crap and shit that's going on that you don't have to pay attention to. There is a park, friends outside, a bar, a place to hang out just around the corner. You know what I mean? It's not very hard for you to get out of your element and get out of reality just for a bit. I'm not saying that to live in a false picture, but just get to that connection,
Yeah.
be able to connect with others and make those experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not as it can be intimidating at first to kind of try and connect with people, if especially if our upbringing has maybe taught us to develop a script which tells us not to trust connections. Because many people have that, where the struggle to trust connections. So it's difficult to then say, get out there and talk to people. Um, but but yeah, yeah. I think living in the moment. I have a something that I always try and tell myself when I'm snapping back to this moment, and it's just to try and remember that in the very instant when we look at where we are, and this is this, then this as it is perfect. It's a as you are now, as I am now, and as this moment is, it's absolutely perfect. But what changes it is the self and the relatability, and us saying, it we maybe don't acknowledge the perfect, or we say, yeah, this is good, but this is perfect, but it's a bit stuffy in this room that I'm in, or the air's not very good, or it's a perfect moment, but my tummy keeps rumbling, so I need to get something to eat, all that kind of stuff. And it's really the self. But what Buddhism and what Zen teaches us is just to keep coming back to that perfect now, to that perfect this. And I think that is what gets us to be able to live in the moment, and that's kind of what gets us to connect with like this authenticity, because I think the self gets in the way of authenticity sometimes. Maybe
Oh, yeah.
we don't trust ourselves to be authentic, or maybe we fear that authenticity sometimes will expose us, or will you know
See,
bring
this is the problem though, because why is mass media, why are media outlets, why are news corporations losing followers and losing interest? It's because of authenticity and trust. The thing is, people are no longer interested in a story that's been typed, put on a teleprompter over 36,000 times over and over again.
Mm,
People want something real. And
mhm,
it's not because, they want entertainment. More than that, it's how much bullshit can one human brain handle? Ask
mm.
yourself that. How much bullshit can you shove in a person's face until they say to themselves, enough is enough?
Yeah,
This is not normal.
yeah. The problem is though that bullshit is entertaining sometimes, you
Sometimes it
know,
is. Yes.
and it is really true. I was listening to something the other day, and it was a Zen Buddhist pastor, and he was saying that a lot of the unfortunately or authenticity doesn't get viewers. So when you look at your soap operas and things like that, the drama is like totally blown out of proportion. The scale and emotions and the
It's
consequences
entertaining.
of it, but it's entertaining, and for some reason, that engages us more than authenticity does. And you look at the news; it's always the catastrophes and the things that really speak to either our um, horror or our anger or things like that, and that's what gets the views. If there was
Emotions. They touch into
emotions,
emotions. Yeah.
yeah, and but also they bring connection, because strong emotion is very easy to identify with another person. If we're feeling very strongly about something or very angry about something, we can very quickly connect with someone that feels the same way. Whereas if we're all sat on the fence about something, it's quite hard to find the people that are your people as far as that subject's concerned. So I think we love that as part of being part of a community, how it makes us easier. And social media work operates in exactly the same way. You don't get the posts that gets people sat on the fence or a bit okay about things. You get the posts that either makes people very very angry or very very horrified, and you get the posts that force people to pick a side, because that in itself brings people together, because it's very easy to see who your people are on one side of the fence or the other. Yeah,
It,
so
it's like the age old expression, the grass is always greener on the other side.
yeah, yeah,
It's it's where you have to like be able to like understand reality,
mm,
not just entertainment.
yeah,
It's trying to depict reality. It's just being aware and just understanding like you can choose to be a part of it. It's your
yeah,
choice.
hmm,
Will I choose that? Probably not.
mm,
But again, it's all about like understanding what you want to choose as a person. And again, like it's also understanding that what you choose as a person comes with consequences, pros and cons, just like everything else. Again, like
hmm,
we're part of this world. Everything you do affects you,
hmm,
what you're
yeah,
doing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you do have the choice to step back as well and take everything in. If there's let's look at a Trump issue. Let's not name one.
Ooh,
Let's not call one out, but let's
there's so
just
many.
say
There's
there's
so many.
there's so many, and you've got people on one side want to see him in jail. You've got people on another side think it's all entrapment and he's getting trapped or victimized, and people pick a side. Now, I could personally choose to step back. I mean, I'm not American anyway, so as a British person, I almost feel like, although I have an opinion, I almost feel like it's not really up to me to voice what it is. So,
You're
because
good. You're
yeah,
good.
yeah, I'm sure I could, but one option is to step back and just say, I'm sure the justice system or democracy will do its thing. Now, if I choose to do that, I'm missing out on both of these very defined and very popular groups on each side of the fence. So I'm choosing then, in a way, not to be connected to loads of people who have the opportunity to be connected to. And I think from a human perspective, that can be difficult for people because we want to be connected to people.
Right.
So, and I think the algorithm of social media plays on that. It knows that, it's difficult to step back and not pick a side, because if we do that, we're not in a massive group of people rooting for each other. I don't know if you can hear, but my stomach's making horrific noises.
Same.
I'm
Same.
very sorry. I'm trying to
No.
move. I'm going to be laid horizontal at some point so that the microphone's as far away from my stomach
You
as I
can.
can get it.
It's fun. Oh, it's funny. It's funny. This reminds me of I have a good friend of mine. She lives in Manchester,
Right.
and oh my
UK.
god, yeah, UK,
Right.
and
Okay.
she's such a lovely person. Sometimes I call her up, and this is just a very British thing. And it's Saturday like afternoon, and I'm like, "Hello," and she's like, "Oi," and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm making tea," and I'm like, "What do you?" Okay, she's like, "I have 45 different teas. Which one shall I choose?" I'm like, "Excuse me, excuse me." Oh. But the thing that I always loved about her is we were both raised in a religious community,
Right.
and we both kind of left, and we both just like related so well. But we're from two different countries,
Yeah.
and it was just it still is just absolutely wonderful and really crazy, especially as an American, when you interact with people from other countries, when you make relationships with people that grew up differently than you.
Yeah.
You kind of realize that, okay, most people don't live like America. Actually, nobody lives like Americans. Nobody in the entire 183 countries in this entire world live like Americans.
Okay.
But when you realize what the world is like for others, it can teach you something. It can teach you to be maybe a little bit more practical for yourself, maybe a little bit more simplistic, and maybe not be so materialistic.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think in some ways the UK is probably quite similar to the States. The same thing maybe drives us, but then at the same time, we are probably very different.
You think South UK and the North are the same? Come on.
Oh, what in the UK? Oh no, no, we're very different.
Very different.
Yeah, very different.
South
I
is very
mean,
posh. North is very. I like the North of the
uh
UK, to be honest.
yeah, it can be. The North can be quite posh. It's still got
Depends
its
where you are,
areas.
though.
It depends
Yeah.
where you are. But obviously, there's a lot of money gets pumped into the South. I'm in the Northeast in Newcastle, and
Oh,
yeah, I'm in Newcastle, and if you look at we're actually doing something at work, looking at the number of big projects that actually go on in different parts of the UK. So in sort of London, you got like 9,000 massive projects that have been done in the last year, and whereas
you're talking about like construction
in
projects.
construction projects, and you look at Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, it's all roughly around the 6,500, 7,000 big projects mark. But then the Northeast, it's something like 3,000.
Okay.
So they just don't pump the big money into that area. So yeah, and for that reason, obviously, the money attracts money. Um, so you don't. Yeah, I guess we are more down to earth in the Northeast.
There
I would say.
there's there's something really wonderful about North England,
Yeah.
especially like just the music culture, the art, the people. I was in Manchester about 3 years ago.
Mm.
I loved it. It was absolutely amazing because it's true, like very down to earth, very warm people. Like here, might just here's a pint, and it's like, whoa, it's this big. Lord, I can't keep up with UK
no,
drinking.
no, we do love
Uh,
our drink.
It's crazy. I think there's more. I think there's more bars than there are churches in the UK, or some crazy number like that. Makes total sense.
Yeah, it's funny because we were asleep last night and we had it's actually it's absolutely roasting in the UK at the moment. It's I mean I don't think it's
How many
roasting across.
degrees?
I think we're at about 26 something like that, which 26C, which isn't a great deal.
We're
Uh
30. We're 33 right now here in
yeah,
Florida. It's crazy.
but which is mad when you think of the temperature differences, but we're in like we don't have air conditioning or anything, and we've got these just big stone houses, so it takes about 3 years for the heat to leave our house. Something like that. You just got to open the window for 5 years. It'll cool down in a
Mm,
bit.
oh
Yeah.
God.
But we were asleep last night and we had the bedroom window open. And I was woke up at about 3:30 in the morning. And it was obviously a couple and they were laughing and larking about. And you could hear them and they were saying, right, what should we do then? And the girl was like, "Shall we go into town for a drink?" And this is 3 o'clock in the morning. So when I used to go out on a Friday night, I was getting in by 3 in the morning. But this couple was just deciding to start going out
Three in the morning.
3 in the morning. So
Oh,
they'll probably be getting home about now from
oh
there.
my God.
It's
Oh,
absolutely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
it is. It is.
I can't keep up now with the amount of drink though. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I could drink a fair bit and then wake up the next day and be fairly okay with it. But now, if I drunk the same amount, I'd be out of action probably for the whole of the next day. I think a big one of the common expressions up in the north is we have like a 2 day hangover.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah. Hence the long weekends.
yeah, so if you're on a 2 day hangover night, then yeah, you've obviously had a good session.
Oh God. Well, it's funny because like out here, this is so crazy. I live out in South Florida.
Right.
Everything closes at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Saturdays, Friday. I'm like, do we look 89 to all of you? Do I look 89? Like that's just like the atmosphere. Like we're gonna close at 1 a.m. Like we're gonna be nice and quiet. Like fuck that shit. I want the music to be loud until 5.
Yeah.
So it's weird, especially here, like drinking culture here in the US. It's
Mm.
day and night, depending on where you are. If you're in New York, you can be drinking from 5 o'clock in the morning all the way around to
All the way
five
through.
o'clock the next day. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine New York's very sort of 24-hour culture, isn't it? I would
Yeah.
imagine.
It's a little different now. I mean, I haven't been there. I left 2 years ago,
All right.
but they were starting to get things back up and running. I mean, like the thing though is when you think about major cities, like we're talking about the UK, it's a little different because you have major cities like Manchester. I think Manchester. I think Liverpool is also considered a major city.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would have
Yeah,
said definitely.
yeah. So, but then you have a lot of little cities. And you have little countryside areas. So it's just it's really hard, like especially when you want to talk about like social society, when you want to talk about like people gathering together and drinking.
Mm.
I think it's just like a community thing.
Right.
That's where it starts from. It's just a
Hmm.
community thing, and then it just grows from there. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It is. I suppose it's the people that you're with as well, isn't it? On it changes a lot when you get married as well. I have to tell you that we don't. Yeah, but now me and the wife, we're not really big partiers now. We don't do a load of the going into town and getting hammered. If I'm doing that, it's generally work. If we do a work stew. I've had some really messy nights going out with work in the past.
Oh
It's
my
been
god.
ridiculous. Yeah, I've had me. We used to do a night out on a Thursday. So when we were still in on the Friday, and I've had me boss phoning me at 11 o'clock in the morning asking me why I'm not in work because I've gotten so drunk the night
Mhm.
before back in my wilder days.
Oh,
But yeah, yeah,
I don't really party at all. Like I'm kind
right,
of just I kind of stay home and just work.
right,
It's It's really weird because my attitude is you work throughout your 30s. You know,
Okay.
not work through sorry, work throughout your 20s.
Right.
Take that time, build yourself a career, establish yourself, and then when you reach your 30s, spend that time that you've now worked and you've accomplished things and
Mm.
build on that and spend, more time kind of learning and continuing to understand who you are as a person because like age is just a number, but knowledge is a different thing. As you get older, you become more knowledgeable. Doesn't mean you're smarter. It
Mm.
just means you have more knowledge. But it's like, what does that make you as a person? Like how does that not how has that knowledge shaped you as a person now? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. The perspective changes as well. I mean, I know we say you can say that age is just a number, but being in my 40s now, where I'm conscious of my hips starting to ache a bit when I do certain things, my knees start to ache a bit when I do certain things. Um, my fitness, it's still pretty good, but I'm noticing I do notice a difference, and there's that sense that I'm sort of approaching a kind of a halfway point. Who knows with medicine these days? Who knows how long we're going to live now? Um, but it does. It still feels very different to in your 20s. In your 20s, there's still a sense that you're going to live forever, and you can kind of push death into the background, can't you? And ignore the fact that it's going to happen because you've got so much ahead of you. It hardly matters when you're in your 20s. Do you know what I mean?
Not
Do
necessarily
you not think?
because no, because I have this thinking of where you could be dead tomorrow.
You could be.
You could be dead right. You could be dead right now.
Hmm.
Thing is, you don't know. You can be gone, and that's what we were saying. Like the get go, the whole idea is living in the moment because
Hmm.
I definitely hear your perspective, and I definitely agree. There are a lot of people that think that way. That like, okay, I'm in my 20s, yeah, I'm gonna party and give a fuck, and just do
Hmm.
whatever. But again, it does come at a that I came to this realization after reading lectures and watching documentaries and just hearing people that created their own experience for themselves. Like you were saying, it's just like when you reach that point in your life and you start noting your hips are aching. Okay, so you figure out now you're in this stage and point of your life. What are you going to do for yourself?
Yeah.
At this point to better
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah, I think it's both sides are true because you can still, well, and I do, I still live in the moment. I still try to, despite the stage of my life that I'm at. And yet the stages are very different. So I think you can say both are true. I know when I'm in my 80s, if I get to my 80s and, I'm starting to thinking, have I got 10 years left? Have I got 15 years left? How long's my wife going to be with me? How long am I going to be available for my wife? That's still, although I can still be in the moment at that time, it's still a very different feeling stage of life.
They're wondering thoughts. I kind of think of them as tidal waves
Yeah, that's a nice way of
because
putting it.
yeah, because they're kind of very unexpected. But I think that types of it it ties in with your subconscious. One big thing about psychedelics, which a lot of people have been brought up, is the opening of your subconscious. Your subconscious mind is a very dark place in your head, and it's that way for a very specific reason. It's the things that you accept as a person but don't fully accept whole. It's it's being able to, like, when you pass that stage of, oh, am I going to pass before this person, it's
Hmm.
where you're reaching a point in your mind of it is something that is going to happen eventually. It's not
Mm.
now.
Yeah, yeah, and there's functionality reasons for that as well. The fact that we don't allow ourselves to be totally overwhelmed by the subconscious, um, because there's a functional side of our brain that needs to achieve tasks, that needs to drive the car, that needs to get across the road, that needs to be useful at work. And if we could tap into 100% of our subconscious, I can imagine that would be incredibly overwhelming. And we would be running red lights, we'd be driving at the back of the cars because we would be so overwhelmed with all of these thoughts that are going. So I think there's a functional reason why we have this filter of what parts of our subconscious gets through. And yet at the same time, obviously, you'll probably do it yourself, is work on mindfulness techniques where you're able to make sure that, because some parts of our subconscious, because of the way our journey's been through life, will never get heard. They'll never get heard, and it's because we've learned to not listen to that part, maybe. There could be other reasons as well that are quite complex and a bit of a rabbit hole. Um, I'm trying to think what my train of thought was there, actually. But yeah, I think I got lost in the groove, didn't
There we
I?
go. We had a lost in the groove moment
I got
live
lost in
for
the
you.
groove. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing, the subconscious. Have you seen the film Lucy? Have you seen that one
Yes, I have.
where she obviously taps into the lot? Obviously, it opens up the whole of her brain, and I love that concept of
It's just like
what.
sad that they own like the only problem was that we use 100% of our brain. Like it would have been better if they would have done something a little bit more different than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know because I'm not a brain surgeon, so I don't know. I think my understanding was that there's like a functional part, and then there's all of the stuff that does your fight and flight, and that handles your emotions and your hypothalamus and all this sort of stuff, and stores your memories. And then you've got this other bit that's functional. So yeah, I think in that context, you're using a lot more than what was portrayed in the movie. Um, but yeah, isn't the brain's incredible when you look at it. It's just this great
Yeah.
thing. Was it one of your podcasts that I was listening to where they were talking about AI and the computer power that would
Oh,
be required?
oh, Neuralink. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's Elon Musk has been working on this for quite a number of years, and I think Microsoft and a few other companies like Google is working on this as well. They're creating. So just to catch everybody up on this, um, several years ago, a group of robotics and scientists created this exoskeleton for a paraplegic that could not use his legs. And what it basically would do, it allowed him to move his legs. This man was able to walk.
Mhm.
What they're trying to create is a piece where they can input into the brain and can basically act as your nervous system and basically bypass your nervous system and attach and be able to connect to different parts of your body. So, like, for example, people that are paraplegic in certain parts,
Mm.
and also do other tasks as well. Eventually, like artificial intelligence in front of your eyes, so you can see virtual reality without even a headset. But if we think about computers, if you want to think about quantum, even like quantum computers, the Mother Nature, has been doing this since the dawn of time. The universe is a giant computer. Like, we are computers. We have a computer chip brain. We have electrical wires, nerves. We have a frame, exoskeleton. I can keep on going. Like, we
Yeah.
are, in a way, artificial intelligence and computer. And I think as time progresses, those two worlds will just become one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I remember we have an observatory local to us. Well, I say local; it's about 50 minutes away, 40 minutes away, something like that, which is fairly local in American terms. It's around the corner. Um, so, so yeah, we went to the observatory, and one of the big talks was looking for life on other planets, and the fact that we can now see with the new telescope, the new technology, and we're seeing so many stars that are in that Goldilocks state, and that's just within our own galaxy. And then you can see so like it's like trillions of galaxies. It's like a number that's too big for a brain to actually make sense of. And we were saying, and actually, the guy who ran the observatory at the time, who was doing the talk, didn't believe that we would ever find life out there, not on this planet. Um, that does. I don't think he was necessarily saying
Mm.
that it wasn't there. I think he was just saying it'll either be too far that we'll ever find any evidence of it. But my point was that the fact that our brains are of this universe anyway. We're made of stardust, and somehow that stardust is now conscious, is now aware of itself. So
Binding molecules, the fundamental component that allowed after the Big Bang to create our universe.
yeah,
Binding molecules is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. But this dust is now looking at itself, so I can look at my hand and I can think that's my hand, and this is dust that is making sense of all of this world and is actually looking outward and inward. And so life on other planets is irrelevant, really. The fact that we're part of a galaxy that is conscious anyway.
The thing is that if you think about extraterrestrial life, you have to understand something. Either this is how I look at it is we don't know what these species are made of. You see, the thing about physics, and I love physics, even though I failed throughout high school and I've never passed a physics test, but I love physics. Um, our laws of physics are bound by the rules that we've set fit by our Earth, by our planet, and what we've known about the known, I'm going to put in giant quotations, known universe.
Yeah, like the
Now,
observable.
observable universe,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So if you take species that might live in alternative universes, we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
or species that live in a certain system where I actually heard this as an example by a scientist, and I thought this was really cool. Imagine this. He says, imagine if you had a solar system that was surrounded by a ring of stardust and basically, explosion of nebulas. So you have this giant cloud. And
Okay.
he says, if you had a red dwarf and you had a Goldilocks planet with two moons, okay? And he
Mm-hmm.
says, imagine this planet was formed, it had hydrogen and oxygen. And he said, if you mix in, for example, like titanium and aluminium, so you add in metals. So this whole planet is made out of metal compounds, but there's
Mm-hmm.
organisms and things. So the species on these planets are made out of metals too. And you could keep on going with this.
Yeah,
So this is just an idea in theory. We don't know what these things are. We don't know how they talk. We don't even know if they talk at all.
yeah.
We don't know if they're physical we don't know what they
Mm-hmm.
like. We're so limited in thought because we only know from the observable scope.
Yeah.
We don't know further.
Well, when we're looking at the boson field and these molecules that come from something, and we know there's a field that something passes through. This is where I'm way outside the realms of my physical knowledge. Um, uh, but on
But
the
it's
other
fun to
side,
talk to.
yeah, it really is, and there's obviously something that it is before it goes through that boson field. How do we know there's not a whole universe on the other side of that boson field? And the fact that particles in quantum physics, particles appear from nowhere and then disappear, and are doing it all of the time. And it's so, and you've got this is like a bit of a curveball, but you've got pigeons that use magnetic fields to navigate, and there's no reason why aliens need to speak. It could just be gravitational, or it could just be. I mean, but then look at our empathy. There could be aliens on another planet talking about alien nature, and they could be saying, there could be beings out there that can just feel another person's emotions without being connected. And here we are having a conversation about aliens that maybe don't need to speak. So,
No, because like I was recently watching. I haven't fully watched the documentary, but if there's a group of chimps, I believe, I think in Zimbabwe,
right,
or not Zimbabwe, I can't remember. It's called They're Ngogo chimps,
right,
and they don't really do a lot of talking. They
right.
do, but they do a lot of. They communicate with a lot of facial expressions, and the thing again is, like, as we as humans, I don't like to believe in the idea that there isn't extraterrestrial life. I believe that there is a very big possibility, but I also believe at the same time there are little signs on this planet that shows us that most species generally don't speak. They don't communicate with speech.
Hmm.
It's one thing that we have as humans. It's very unique. We've created language. So I don't know. I feel like it's very hard to apply our level of thought and thinking as a species to apply that to aliens. I know that sounds crazy. Like I
Hmm.
don't think other humanoid species like us exist.
Okay. Yeah, you think we're like sort of very unique. I mean, it's not hard to believe that we are if you look at how different every
Mutation.
person is. Yeah. If you look at that, you can have 8 billion on the planet and every single one of us is unique. So another species is very, very likely. In fact, you could argue it is pretty much an impossibility that another species would be humanoid
Yeah,
in a way.
think about you could have a species that is a gaseous species.
Hmm.
So they're made out of gas, like for example, particles in like Jupiter.
Hmm.
So how would they survive? Well, the only way that they could survive, physically, would be as a collective,
Yeah.
because the temperatures and the changes within gas, they would have to be combined. Otherwise, they would dissolve to nothing. So they would be forced to be a collective. They wouldn't be able to be individuals.
Mm.
So it's really interesting you bring that up, because that is what makes us unique as humans, is that we are individuals. We're
Yeah.
not generally a collective,
Mm. Or,
even though we think we are.
or that's how we see ourselves. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just going to say exactly the same thing. Yeah, that's how we see ourselves. And
Yes.
there's a bit of a obviously we've got survival of the fittest sort of stuff going on, and we've got genetic strengthening, I guess you could maybe call it. I don't know what the actual Darwinian phrase should be, but you get as we're evolved to as a species to get better at stuff, and all species on the planet have that trait where the 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 species in itself is trying to get better at life, sort of thing, better at surviving, better at growing, better at reproducing. Yeah, maybe there's stuff out there that doesn't need to do that. You know,
No.
you got those immortal jellyfish. There's a curveball. You got those jellyfish that they reckon actually don't need to die. They get to a certain age and then they revert back to infancy and they just keep going backwards and forwards between child
Think
and adult.
think about sea turtles.
Right?
Okay, sea turtles. There are records of some of them living up to like 400 years of age.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is crazy, and it just again just goes to show you that evolution evolves differently depending on the compounds and molecules that are combining, because that's what makes things. That's what makes a tree a tree. That's what makes sand sand. That's what makes us us. Is those atoms, those chemical molecules, like for example, hydrogen and nitrogen combining together to create something. Uh, it's so simplistic. It's just one thing adding another, and then you have now a new thing.
Hmm.
But it yet makes such a complex thing at the same time. It's crazy.
Yeah. I find it incredible that obviously at some point it becomes aware of itself. It's able to see itself as having a place in the universe and, be self aware. At some point, these molecules have combined to an extent where something is conscious.
It's alive.
blows your mind. Yeah, it blows your mind. Do you think the sea turtles, when they get to 400 and they still say to each other, "God, today's dragged on." Yeah. When they get to 400 years old, you're like, bloody hell, it's been a long day today.
Oh my god! Can you imagine the little sea turtles making a little birthday? We're 400. Happy 400.
It's a lot of candles. I know that.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
A lot of seashells. Can you
yeah.
imagine, like, people diving down? Like, damn, why are there so many seashells down here? Oh god!
Yeah, yeah, crazy.
But the thing that I think that's so crazy is, like, people have been noticing. I mean, for the past few years, like, these sightings and, like, supposedly these tic tac shaped things in the sky.
Mm.
I because I watch things here and there. I have this theory, and I've heard other people think about this too. What if other alien species, you know, they're advanced, but they don't want to waste their time coming here?
Mm.
They're not going to come here. So, how do we know that they haven't advanced their artificial intelligence beyond levels that we understand? And they've been sending AI. So, these artificial self driving spaceships that are
Hmm.
observators that come to our planet to observe what's going on and then go back and report. And let's just say they've been doing this for years.
Hmm.
Like, they don't care that, like, we're here. They're just here to observe our planet, you know?
It could just be on safari. It could just be, we go on safaris to watch how the wild animals live. It might just be tourists. Just want to see, learn, just
Yeah.
watch,
Yeah,
just watch.
wearing a shirt saying I love Earth.
getting the plates for the UFO ships.
Exactly. Like, been on Earth.
I
Oh,
was here. Yeah.
that spot
But
was mine.
but there's that theory, isn't it, where you get to a certain level of advanced civilization, and I can't remember who it was, but he made these laws of how the reason that we haven't been visited by aliens is because any species generally will get to a certain level of civilization, and they'll a certain level of advancement, and they'll either destroy itself through a war, or exhaust the resources of the planet. And so,
Nuclear war, like a
yeah, nuclear war, things like that, and so that nothing will ever evolve to the capability of having the technology to actually visit another planet and travel that distance, because by the time we've got to that level of technology, we've already wiped ourselves out through our own disagreements, or like I say, exhausting the planet or destroying our own environment, that sort of thing.
it's crazy how quick it takes for the world to start all over again. I mean, it's not even nuclear war. Think about the actual atmosphere and space around Earth. We've had asteroid impacts
Yeah.
many times.
Hmm.
This planet has been, shredded through the wazoo. Who's to say one of these days one of the asteroids comes along? You're looking in the sky and like, what's that big ball in the sky? And they're like, oh shit, the waves are real high. I better get inside. Oh wait, that's too close to the waves. I better run. Oh wait, there's too much traffic. Oh no. But that is a reality that could happen. I
Hmm.
mean, another possibility is, remember, also the entire core of the Earth is molting hot. It's actually hotter than the sun. So we've had volcanoes that are lining our ocean floors, literally line every single ocean floor. If they all erupt simultaneously, which is a very big possibility, they can, all of the Earth's crust completely crack and collapse. So what does that mean? Everything sinks into the ocean. Everything. And then the entire Earth implodes and destroys. So there's so many probabilities of civilization ending completely for
Mm.
species such as ours. But it's
Yeah.
like, are we going to make it? I don't know.
Yeah. And then what does it mean? How easy it could happen. We've got the there's like the Yellowstone super volcano, isn't there? And I
Yeah,
think there's another couple of super volcanoes where they in themselves would just have to erupt and it would change climate entirely. We could get hit by something. Um,
it happened to about 12,000 years ago.
yeah, well, wasn't the dinosaurs? Wasn't that like the fifth mass
Yeah.
extinction or something?
Yeah, massive asteroid impact.
Hmm.
Destroyed literally thousands of species.
Yeah. So it makes you wonder what it all means then, you know,
Yeah.
because what's my place in all of this? The fact that everything could be wiped out and all history is wiped out. Like everything we've learned, everything that's on the internet, every conversation we've had, every memory, and that in itself, all of that's wiped out. So where does that leave us? When we're in this moment and we're being in the moment and we're sort of here and now. This is this. So isn't it like a beautiful mystery of where it leaves us? The fact that we could be wiped out and it's all gone, all knowledge.
This is why I believe it's so easy to spend your time wanting the fame of fans, wanting the cheers of the public, wanting the respect of your chamberlain, but forgetting the fact that you're a speck on a piece of dirt in a universe far, far away.
Hmm.
Okay? So it's just, again, like, I'll be honest with you. It's at a point where how much more can you put people through endurement and torment and this idea of a 9 to 5 and you're going to be okay. They're there. We got you. No, you don't. You don't got us. You don't care. You don't want us to be healthy. You don't want us to be anything. We're
Hmm.
just here to make you run and be profitable. And it's that simple. So, yeah, if you take yourself out of the equation, you're left with self. Where do I exactly go?
Hmm.
You don't fit anywhere. It's like
Hmm.
you're either a part of this or you're not. You got to make a choice.
Hmm. You can go either way, can't you? Right. So I mean, some people really go into the corporate game, into the machine, and really go for it, and some people do decide to step back and say, I don't really want to be a part of this. Very brave to step back from it and say, right, okay, I'm going to do things my own way. I'm not going to be part of this machine, and be almost a victim of just this. It's servitude with a pretty face on it, isn't it? We're conned into thinking that we're actually trying to earn money and trying to buy the next best thing, which we need, which we don't. But that we need the next big car, we need the next big house, we need the newest iPhone, we need to be
Do, do,
popular.
do you remember? Do you remember when smartphones first? I remember when smartphones first came out.
Yeah.
It was a game changer because before then, okay, this is how it was. Like most people, you didn't really change phones. You did if you had the money
Hmm.
or if it broke, which happened more often than you actually thought.
Yeah.
You remember like the power supply where you'd plug it in, you'd hear a little snap, you're like, oh, you press the button, nothing comes on, and stuff like that. Like there was weird stuff. And then this shiny new thing comes along that does what your iPod used to do, what your laptop used to do, and it's all at your fingertips. It's in one little, device. And move past now, over 15 years. I think 16 or 17 years. Um Look where we are now.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Is it a good thing or a bad thing, though?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not
It's a great
convinced.
question.
Yeah, I think you can use it for for good or for good or bad, and you can get good things from it. The level of connection we have is a wonderful thing. Like I say, my mum's on holiday now, in a different country, and she messaged me earlier and said, "Oh, did you phone me? there, and I phoned her accidentally, and I was able to message back and go, it was an accident, no bother. It's
It's
don't worry about it. And but the fact that you can do that, it's you
amazing.
wouldn't be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to
No.
do that before. I wouldn't know how my mum's holiday was until she got back home.
Or she sent a postcard.
Oh, she sent a postcard, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which
Or I don't know if you guys had this in the UK. We used to have call cards. So we
right?
used to get if you would travel, you would get from your travel agent. They would give you a call card with your plane ticket, and then when you would go there, you'd go to a payphone wherever you were staying, and you can call back home.
Oh, right. No, I didn't have those.
You didn't have call
No,
cards?
no,
Wow, it's an
no.
American thing. Okay,
Must be,
yeah,
must be.
but it was such a like just think about that. That was just a
Mm.
task and an additional task, but now like you can just message and connect with anybody
Oh
at
yeah,
your fingertips.
right. And you can even see photos. Like they're taking photos while they're on holiday, and they put it on Facebook, and then however many hundred friends that that person has can then also look at the photos that they've just taken seconds ago, comment on them. You know, it's it blows your mind. I remember not having a mobile phone, but I remember mobile phones being a new thing, and it was when it was like the Nokia 3210s and things like that, where
The
and you had to
bricks,
set the bricks, and you had to send a text message by pressing number 4 and then number 7. It was all, you know, you pressed 8 4 times to get a
yeah.
Z or something like that. You couldn't just type stuff, and it was you were only allowed so many characters. So yeah,
I remember when I was in high school, we had my phone plan only allowed us to have 1,000 characters.
right.
So people today are like, LOL, LMAO. And I'm like, do you know why we use that? Do you know why? It's because it was so expensive to send a text message that that's what we were left to is like just WTF. Like, but it's just crazy how far and how quick.
Mm,
You know, like think about for yourself. I mean, in your lifetime, think about the past 10 years compared to 10, 20 years prior to that.
yeah, yeah. But isn't it interesting that even when it was text messages back then, and you had your Nokia 32 whatevers, it wasn't enough. It says something about humanity, really, that it wasn't enough to just say words. We had to devise a way to send a bit of emotion. So we developed this LOL to sort of share the fact that we had a joyful emotion about it. And now we have emojis and GIFs, and it seems to mean more to us to have a way of conveying emotion than it is to convey facts and words. So, you know, finding a GIF. Do you say GIF or GIF? Because some people say GIF, don't they?
I say GIF.
Yeah, I say GIF.
Yeah, I believe in proper English, and we both know that we were taught in school a G at the beginning of a word is G.
Is
It's
good. Yeah,
GIF.
correct.
So, yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
But yeah, it means so much to us to find that GIF that conveys the perfect emotion than
Do you
it does to
remember
say the facts.
do you remember when I still remember this. We used to have to create our own emojis because emojis
Yeah.
didn't exist. And it's crazy. You take like a semicolon and a comma, and you would put these things together to represent a smiley face, a frown,
Mhm.
like again, like the same idea, like this yearning of like I want to talk to you. I want to express to you how I'm feeling. And it's
Mm,
think about how like FaceTime was invented. I mean, FaceTime was invented, I think, in like 2010 or something.
right.
It people were so happy because like that's what people were yearning for. They're like, I want more than this. Like, oh my god, now I can call somebody.
Mm,
I can
yeah.
call you and
Mm,
talk to you.
yeah.
And you're in Hawaii, like you could be in Hawaii and I can be in Singapore and you can have a FaceTime call with somebody.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It makes a massive difference to be able to see somebody's face and see the
Yeah.
emotions relayed back, because it just gives you that extra level of connection, doesn't it? It doesn't hit every part of the brain that you need to hit for connection, because we found, when it was COVID and we were all in lockdown, obviously Zoom really took off, and everybody really sort of embraced the video call. And yet there was loads of surveys done by sort of mind charities, and mental health charities, and they were sort of saying that although it's been a massive help, um, it still didn't manage to hit every social button in the mind that we needed to be able to make a connection, which was really, but it's a massive difference. Imagine if we'd have been all been in lockdown and we just maybe had phone calls, or we maybe didn't even have phone calls. Can you imagine what that would have done to the mental
I
health of people?
it was I she's actually the host of American Groove, which is a Lost in the Groove segment. Carissa, we kept each other alive throughout the pandemic. I mean, we used to speak all the time on the phone. It was, again, I mean, this is one of the, you remember we're talking about mindfulness? Like, this is a
Hmm.
mindful moment. We're like, oh my God, we can't leave our houses. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is this? Like, what do you mean I can't leave my house? So it was really great to be able to have people that you could communicate with and kind of stay on key, and not fall off the cliff,
Yeah.
and like, oh, that land looks real close. Oh shit.
Yeah, it was bonkers. I mean, and some people have kids as well, and they couldn't see the
Oh,
kids.
I know.
Yeah, it was
It's
heartbreaking.
crazy.
Some people couldn't see elderly parents, which was heartbreaking. Um, yeah, yeah, it was a crazy time, but I mean, it feels so long ago now, doesn't it? I
It
think.
does.
I don't know
Yeah,
if it does
it
for
does.
everybody, but it feels so long ago now. And
But yet it's still close to us, because I'll tell you this from my own experience. Like, we're talking about like Zoom. I remember I started this podcast in 2021, and one of my big, we use excuses. This is the wonderful thing about humans. We love excuses. My excuse was, well, I can't do podcasting because I can't like have somebody like physically here. That's what podcasting is. And I remember a friend of mine at the time, he told me, he was like, who cares? He's like, who cares? He's like, use Zoom. And I'm like, but it's not the same. He says, again, he's like, who cares?
Mm,
He says, if you're going to spend your time working on something and you wanting to talk with people, you want to communicate with people, use the tools that are your advantage. Don't look at them as disadvantages. Look at them as tools that can give you that advantage. Because it's like, again, you could be negative about everything, but this is all materialistic things.
mm,
And there's so much more that you can gain out of it if you look past those things.
yeah, we tend to fall into the trap of discounting um, things because of obstacles. So we see an obstacle and sort of use that. Like you say, we do like to make excuses sometimes. Um, but part of a healthy mindset is knowing that there's another way of doing something. There's if you really truly want something, and it's in your heart that you genuinely want something, there's always a way. That's one of the things I've always found. Even though it's been difficult, and sometimes I've fallen into the trap of giving up. I've given up before, given up loads of times, but I have found that if you really, really want something, it is there. It's out there somehow. We can't all be lottery winners. There's obviously exceptions to the rule,
It's a gamble.
but yeah, but what's we're on about what a lot of people who want to win the lottery, when they say that they'd like to win the lottery, it's not necessarily to do with the money in the bank. It's something that they want, either something that they would do with that money, or
Their
you
bucket
know,
list.
yeah, a bucket list. So ultimately, once you've found out what is really in your heart, it's doable. It is doable. And it is interesting how we sometimes find those excuses of, I mean, but the reason I'm doing counseling now is because I was on a podcast um, previously. It was last year, actually. It was over a year ago. And I was saying, counseling is something I'd really love to do, but I've already got a day job. I have the 9 to 5. There's risk involved in career changes, or there's this and there's that. And the guy who interviewed me said, well, if you want to do it, what is stopping you? And
Ooh.
yeah, and yeah, if you stop and you ask yourself, what do I want, and what is stopping me? What is stopping you from doing it? And it's all doable. You can do it. It's there.
Yeah, you can make it. You can make it. I made it doable. I mean, I work a 9 to 5 every single day, and I made this podcast doable. Thing is, it's all about, again, it's all about mindset. It's all about being mindful. That's what I was talking about with knowledge, and I feel like as you get older, you start to pick up on these things, and you
Hmm.
start to realize, yeah, I can do this, and I can also make this work too.
Yeah, yeah. It's wisdom, isn't it? It's you do pick up this wisdom. What do you think of the expression "youth is wasted on the young"? Do you think that's a truth?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it is.
Hmm. I I look back and I think sort of if I knew then what I know now, that kind of expression, I would have done things differently. I don't think I would have done, to be fair. I think there's a reason why we go through time, and our journey is a certain way, so that we're youthful at first and naive at the same
I
time.
I'll tell you this: the one thing that I always appreciate the most is especially those like the elderly, like people that are in like their 70s, 80s. They're the people that are not closed minded. They're very open and they're very youthful. They don't care that they're old. They
Mm,
don't care that they only have 10 or 20, maybe 30 years left. All they care about is what they did, what they accomplished. If they're an artist or sometimes an instrumentalist, I met somebody that was like that. That's why I believe that phrase is so true,
mm,
because I think youthfulness is something you have to earn. It's not something that's given.
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's the it can not always be the case,
Not
but
not physically. I'm talking about
yeah,
like mentally
yeah,
primarily.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, mentally. But I mean, yeah, I think with a lot of the elderly, what's beautiful is a lot of the shit has dropped away. A lot of the inhibitions have gone because they've been there and they've done it all and they've seen it, and they're not necessarily worried about what anyone thinks of them anymore because they're old and they've done it all. Um, but yeah, I think what we would all possibly like is just to be able to be at a certain age and look back and think that we'd lived a good life, that it was a life well lived. And I think another important part of when we get old is passing on that. I think that's definitely a part of the purpose behind older age, as we're at that different stage in our lives, is being able to pass on that sense that, look, all that matters really is that you're in this moment, and your life has been and your life is getting well lived. Yeah, you make mistakes, you'll do things that you wish you hadn't done, but you pick yourself up and you carry on and you try and make the best of where you are. It's going back to the karma, and it's accepting that karma for what it is and making the most of it. You can't change it. The universe isn't really bothered of what you think you deserve. It's kind of, you've just got to really accept who you are, where you are, when you are, and live that life, live the life that you've got.
Because it's true. And it's also where you have this type of mindset where you can become bitter
Hmm.
and have a lot of sorrow and be angry. But I can say this. I heard this from a 75-year-old. He said that, look, he says, I'm 75. I ride 4 miles every single day on my bike. I try to be as fit as I possibly can. He says, I don't do it for my wife. He says, fuck her. He says, I do it for myself.
I bet he didn't say that in front of his wife, though.
No. But that type of attitude shows you that, him as a person, he's an individual that like he cares for himself and he's doing this for himself,
Yeah,
not for anybody else.
yeah. And it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We sometimes fall into the trap of thinking that we shouldn't do things for ourselves because it's selfish. Who else is going to do it though? You know what I mean? Who else is going to do it? So there's nothing wrong with doing things for yourself. And I'm being a counselor because
What type of counseling do you do primarily?
it's person centered therapy. So I'm a trainee. I'm still a trainee. I'm in my first year, but I'm about to take on my first client. And with person centered therapy, it's all about the connection and the relationship, and it's um, allowing the client or whoever to be safe and supported to explore and look inward um, in a way that they're going to be held, they're going to be protected, and they're going to be understood, and they're not going to be judged.
Okay.
Is essentially what person-centered therapy is. I might have missed a few things out there, but yeah.
So it's a form of therapy.
Yes, it's if somebody has lost, if somebody is unhappy, they've got anxiety, or if they've maybe lost their autonomy, or they're maybe just not happy with the way that their decisions make, or they maybe don't feel brave enough, then we will sit with them and allow them to work through that, investigate and see what is actually happening there, and if there's something that they are ready to change and can change, and we sort of support them through that process. So that's generally what we do.
Is this something that is covered like by government funding, or this is something that would be like out of pocket that somebody would have to pay for?
Yeah, I mean, they do get mental health practitioners through like the NHS, which is government funded. I'm self funded. So I'm paying for my own college course. When I've qualified, I do want to be able to offer it as a service to people that necessarily can't afford a counselor. Um, just to try and help in that way. But then also it speaks to me my own podcasting and me martial arts practice, me work practice, because I want to try and help educate the building industry on the things that affect the well-being, mental well-being of staff, because it's entirely linked to productivity. So a company that invests in the mental well-being of its staff in the long run gets massive benefits from it, from having staff that doesn't break down, um, that doesn't have relational boundaries with bosses and colleagues, that doesn't discount things. Sometimes if you've got that email that you just don't want to deal with, so you'll forget it's there, and then before you know it, that email's 30 days old. You've got a
Yeah,
client now is complaining to your boss that you haven't replied,
responded.
responded, etc., etc. And all of these things are very natural human things that we do. And teaching a company that we can get the message out that it's natural to have those, and you can speak, and it's safe to speak. A lot of colleagues, a lot of employees don't feel safe about speaking. If
I don't
yeah,
blame them. I mean,
yeah,
think about what's going on right now, especially here in the U.S. With it's just the insanity just keeps on. It keeps on going and going and going and going. And here's a realistic approach, and this is one reason why I wanted you on this. You live in the UK. I live here in the United States. We have horrible health coverage to the
mm,
point where if you want therapy, you have to pay upwards to 60 to $150 per session
Mm.
per week here in the, and that is with insurance here in
Hmm.
the United States. There are other countries such as allies with the United States, such as the UK, that have none of these problems. That have none of the They have these problems, but not to the point where we don't have any other option to turn to. The thing is, like you were talking about for yourself, where if you're able to offer for those people that don't have those necessary funds to pay for it, and they have the accessibility to come to you and be able to get that service, it's a lot harder here in the US to get those things.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to point out.
yeah,
Much
no,
harder.
yeah, and the problem we're seeing in the UK is still the waiting times to see someone.
Okay.
Um, I've had my own personal experience where I've looked at a client book when I first started looking at client books and looking at people that are waiting to see a therapist, and this was only a month ago, and someone was in the book and had been waiting since November 2021. So they'd had an issue, um, and they needed to speak to somebody, and they'd been left for what's that, a year and a half, something like that. We're in June 2023 now. So if you look at someone, and that doesn't really seem to matter if someone is maybe having suicidal thoughts, perhaps maybe they'll get pushed up a list that way. But
Right.
someone who's really struggling, a lot can happen in a year and a half. Things can get worse, and people will lose faith in the system as well.
You see that that's kind of the way the pendulum swings, where you have one side where it's too expensive,
Hmm.
and you have on the other side where it's accessible, but it's very unaccessible. It's
Yeah,
very, it's very anti and very counterclockwise to how each one works, because it should be the opposite.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's such a the annoying thing is, if the government invested money in providing effective mental health care, the benefits of that in the long term are absolutely huge on what they'd save. Um, Bad mental health cause can then cause physical health conditions. Um, if you look at problems with diets, problems with self harm, suicide rates, violence rates, crime rates. Um, the government tends to be, or governments tend to be, reactive instead of proactive. So the investment goes into policing or prisons or hospitals and things like that. Whereas if we just were able to provide a service where we're able to provide support and to help people to be autonomous and safe, um, and for the self care to be there, the government would save way more than what it would have to spend.
But then you have those people that take a structure such as the ones that exist in Scandinavia, like in Finland and in Norway, where their mental health and clinical systems over there for mental health is a lot better than most places in the world.
Mm.
They have much shorter wait times. They have a different system over there. From the way that it was explained to me was everything is categorized. So each system works in its whole, and everybody works together. So they basically have one council with another council on top of another council. And
Okay.
it's like you're not talking about 40 or 50 people. You're talking about a team of like 25 people that are dedicated to taking care of each of their departments. So that's great. It's great. I'm really happy for Norway. You do that here in the United States. You give the Democrats full power to make every single American to have broken legs, go to CVS and pick up splinters because they can't pay $400 for a copay. I'm not joking. That's exactly
Right.
what would happen here.
Right.
So it's really hard to apply different practices and rules, especially for yourself. I mean, you're moving into a career as a physical therapist, not physical, a therapist, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and you have to be able to delve into this world, like understand what you're dealing with. And it's like, I don't know if there really is any big change that can be done, especially in the UK and especially here in the United States,
Mm.
that would be feasible and actually doable by both of our governments. Because remember, you said that they're reactive, they're not
Yeah,
they're not proactive.
yeah, yeah. That's what we find. That's what we find. Yeah, it's a difficult thing. I mean, I do think it's possible, but it's getting them to it's trying to convince them that it's in the long run beneficial. I don't know how much difference it makes that the benefits outweigh it, the sort of payback is longer than the term time of a government. If you think of a political party is in power for 2 years and it's 4 years over there, so if the long term benefits is something like 10 years, are they really going to invest in it when it's not going to?
No, because look at the homeless situation here. You want to talk about mental health?
Yeah,
Our homeless situation here in the U.S. is like this. You take L.A. for example. You you have these representatives for the homeless council in LA. Okay, some of these people are making about $300,000 a year. Okay, so of course it's not getting fixed because these people are making so much money. Why would they
yeah,
want to fix it?
hmm
So it's so corrupt and flawed in every single aspect. The principle in itself is great. The statue of uh, that exists can be really great, but the way that it's practiced, I have to be careful with my words. Yeah, the way that it's practiced is the biggest issue, I feel.
yeah, yeah. I would agree. I think you make a very good point there. That one therapist stopping somebody from turning to a life of crime or causing lots of health work to be required probably stops a policeman being employed plus a doctor being employed plus and then the boss of the hotel owners and the people that benefit at the top of the police. So yeah, I suppose that it does speak to that. I mean, I'm kind of out of my realms of political knowledge.
It's not
um
about, you know what? I don't even like to use the word politics because we're not even talking about politics. What we're talking about is living living as people.
mm,
Like you as a person that's married, as a person that has kids, or a person that's an individual that's living by themselves, no matter who you are,
mm,
you have to deal with these things every single day. You have to deal with doctors and mental health every single day. Because guess what? We have mental health issues. Most people have
yeah.
mental health issues.
Hmm.
And it's just, it's very hard for me to understand that the one thing as humans, the one thing that we need is mental health that allows us to be functional individuals, allowing ourselves to communicate, work more, have a better workflow,
Hmm.
being more uh, divisive. Is that the word? Yeah. Okay. We'll
Yeah,
go with
yeah,
that.
decisive, yeah.
And but it's non-obtainable. It's just it's so impractical.
Yeah.
That should be a priority.
Mm. Yeah, it's almost like I don't want to say greed because I don't think it's necessarily greed, but it's like something is getting in the way of our own humanity, our own ability to actually be human, to care, to actually know what is important. Being happy is important. And yet, what's stopping us? We don't seem to want to, because it's not profitable unless we're selling holidays, then happiness doesn't tend to be make as much money as solving issues does. In a way, it's like gets in the
See
way of our
see
humanity.
see here's the thing. It's money's not the issue. It's what you do with it. Because let's be real, okay? If we change society today and we said that, let's just say 1 pound or $1.50, that's how much you pay for milk.
Hmm.
Let's just say that we decide that it's a $1.50 per liter for fuel. That's it. Like, you don't need to raise things because there's no need for it. You don't need to make more money. All you need to do is make sure that the products you're giving out are making people happy. They're allowing people to go back to their lives and be able to do the things that they need to do. It's that simple. The whole idea of inflation, this whole idea of needing to make more money and working ourselves harder to survive is not necessary. It only exists because of the need of individuals that are greedy. They want more. It's more than greed. You know what? It's more than that. It's envy of, no, I want something better than that. I need to have
Mhm.
something better. I want to have something better that
Mm.
I must do anything I can to have something better than that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth there. I think that's. I think you're right, and it's strange because we want to. Each of us wants our lives to be better. We want to improve our circumstances. Um, once we've got our base necessities, once we've got food on the table and water, once we've got shelter, once we've got companionship and friends, it's then what else do you want? Because I don't think the brain stops really, does it? It's once it's got those things, it's what's next. Whether it's knowledge, wanting to learn more, or just wanting to hoard more stuff. It's almost like we don't know when to stop once we've got what we need.
Right.
Um, and yet, and that exists in people that are in powerful positions and make decisions that affect countries. And it's almost like humanity because it's a natural thing because we've got to try and make things better for ourselves. That's part of
But can you imagine a way that we can make things better for ourselves, but not having the need to add money to the equation of being like money is a tool. That's the
mm,
thing about it. Where does money come from? Money comes from the idea of trade. And again, I feel like this all kind of ties back with mental health because when you go with a trade, it was where I need this because I need to go home and I need to feed my family. So I'll give you this. And you can use this to make that so you can sell it in the market tomorrow.
yeah.
That's what it is.
Hmm.
And then now you have money has become not only a mandatory, necessary thing to survive, if you don't have it,
Mm,
you're screwed.
yeah. And it's become something in itself that we want. Where it
Yes,
was, like you say, it was a tool. The idea was it stopped you having to straight away swap a cow for 10 loaves of bread, sort of thing.
exactly.
That's why it all had it. It's more convenient. So, okay, I'll buy that cow for 20 coins, and then I can keep those coins for when I do need something, and I can, get a loaf of bread over time as I need it. And it just made things so much easier. But now it's become something in itself that we desire. We sort of, it's almost like when going back to the social media thing where we almost value ourselves. We value ourselves by how much money we have, which is just a number. That's all it is. It's just a number. But on social media, we value ourselves by how many friends we've got or how many likes our comments getting, and
I
it's
can
almost
count I can count on my fingers of how many friends I have.
yeah.
I'm not ashamed of it.
Oh, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same, and I think a big problem is we're confused about what we think we need to be happy. We're sold the idea that it's our happiness lies in material things, and yet it's humanity which makes and the richness of humanity which makes us happy. It's having connections and having a support network and being able to enjoy things with a community, which is actually what makes us happy. It's not having stuff. And you get people that fall into the trap, and you get wealthy people that fall into the trap of wanting loads and loads and loads of stuff, and it doesn't make them happy. Still
I can
doesn't
t-
work.
I can tell you as a podcaster, like and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I think about this like when your podcast grows and becomes bigger and bigger. Truth be told, I've had time to think about it. Who cares about the fame? I don't care
Mm,
about that. The
yeah.
thing that I think I care about the most is, am I benefiting in any way for myself? Do I feel that I'm learning from this? Am I growing from this? Is this benefiting me in any shape or way or form?
Mhm.
The same way you're asking yourself, like, why are you a therapist? Why on earth are you spending your time to go to college and getting this degree? Why should you care? Because you yourself are benefiting from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was the same. I mean, I went through a period when my podcast started. I would get really, really down at the number of at statistics, because you have podcast community Facebook groups and people go, "Hey, I'm getting 200 listens an episode," and you're like, "What? Like 200 listens a day?" And now I'm thinking, "What?"
Crazy.
So yeah, and you know, you can get really down, but it's a number, and they're not, they're not talking to those 200 people, and they don't know who those 200 people are, and they're not getting a connection from those 200 people. Don't take it away from them. I'm happy for them, but that in itself is not what's necessarily making them happy. And if I had 200 downloads a day, that would that make me happy? Not necessarily. It'd be nice at first, but I'd quickly get used to that number, and I'd want 500 listens a day. I'd be wanting the next number or the next thing that it's actually meaningless. What matters to me is one person who speaks to me and says, "That was a really good episode that you did. I really enjoyed listening to that." Or even when I've had a guest on, or when I've guested on something and someone just sends one email and says, "Oh, that was a great episode. I really enjoyed recording that with you. I really enjoyed speaking. You asked some good questions," all that sort of stuff. And that means more than numbers and statistics.
I honestly just care about just meeting new people and having new experiences. I really appreciate people like listening and supporting. I love
Hmm.
that. But the thing you need to learn, especially when you're a content creator and you do broadcasting, and in a way, you're going to be doing broadcasting too. Because,
Hmm.
when you're a therapist, you have to be able to know how to speak. You have to know how to talk to this person and be able to communicate with them. It's all learning curve and learning skill. It's not about the numbers. Fuck the numbers.
Mm.
God,
Yeah, absolutely.
seriously. Like we
Yeah.
need to just get this out of the head. You know where you learn about where numbers don't give a fuck? Think about it, of every single cool rock punk band or new wave band that came out of the UK in the 80s. They were they were poor and they went through fucking shit and they weren't successful at all, but they kept on doing it. Kept on
Hmm.
doing it and kept on recording and kept on making albums. Guess what? I still have to be on a wait list for the Smiths, like for all of their albums. I'm dead serious. Like you have to be on a wait list right now because they don't have any available.
Right.
It just goes to show you that it's all in the mind.
Mm.
It's all attitude, again, mindset. I
Mm.
love that you brought that up, by the way,
Yeah.
because I can't get
Yeah.
that out of my head.
Yeah. Well, like you say, if we go back to this moment, the only thing that matters is this conversation right now that we're having. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you say, fuck the numbers. They don't mean anything. They've got nothing to do with this conversation that we're having now. It's
No.
it's pointless. And the connection with an audience, whoever's out there and listens to this, what's important is this connection that's getting made as you're listening.
Right.
Nothing else matters. It's just this moment right now, and then making the most of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are you? Let me ask you something. Are you on a podcast or you do a podcast yourself?
Yeah, I have a podcast myself. It's called Chatty Geek Hidden Dragon.
Ooh, I like the
Yeah,
title.
yeah. It's sort of a culmination of everything that I love. Obviously, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So that's the nod to me love of martial arts. There, and it's the it kind of it's about embracing your whole self, essentially. Embracing your whole self, being able to acknowledge what you've learned, being able to acknowledge that it hasn't always been easy.
As a martial artist.
As whoever you are. So it used to be. I did one before this one, which was purely martial arts. But I found that there's so many different sides to me. I'm not just
Okay.
I'm not just a martial artist, and
I
I
can
want
see
to.
that.
Yeah, I want to speak to different people. I don't just want to have a pigeonholed group of people that I want to speak to, and anyone that isn't a martial artist, I don't want to speak to them. Sort of thing. Excuse me,
Right.
I'm gonna cough.
You're
Excuse
fine.
me. Sorry.
It's part of the special effects.
Yeah. You can put an explosion over it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so it is about mental health, but I'm trying to make the mental health conversations as fun and accessible as I can.
Yeah, because mental health doesn't always have to be so clinical. I learned this from a
No.
social worker. Like you can do mental health through music. You could do it through dance. You could do it through song. You can do it through like projects with a group. Like
Mhm.
murals and stuff like that. I know they. I remember she was telling me they did that in Manchester. They had with some of the high schools out there. They would bring some of the kids that came from difficult homes, and they were doing murals throughout the city. And I thought that was really special. Like it was a really great way, again, to help boost morale and give them, something to help their mental health with their struggles.
Yeah. When you go out with your friends on a night and you're having a drink or you're having a smoke or whatever it is you do, and you're with your people, you're actually working on your mental health. You don't necessarily have to be seeing a therapist. The benefits of a therapist are really great. You can get a lot of good from that, but to be talking about mental health, it doesn't have to be sad and difficult to listen to.
No.
It doesn't have to be shocking. You can have a great laugh, and like I say, when you're having a great laugh with your friends, and you're having a drink and you're putting the world to rights, you're working on your mental health. It doesn't have to be a difficult thing, and that's what Chatty Geek Hidden Dragon is essentially. We talk about what our hobbies are, and we'll put the world to rights. We get lost in the groove, even though you do it
Ooh.
best.
Oh, thank you.
we get lost in the groove, and that's working on mental health. We're working on our mental health now, having this conversation.
Yeah, it also one of the coolest things. Also, learning from another individual. Again, like I found it so fascinating that the cool thing is you get to hear from another person's experience, and more than
Mm-hmm.
that, you get to hear from another person's knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people doing different types of crafts and different careers, different things you've learned along the way. Why wouldn't you want to hear that?
Yeah.
Why would you want to close yourself off from hearing what another person has to say that you might not even know or have ever
Mm.
experienced?
Yeah, and it links beautiful to what we were saying right at the beginning, where everybody is a fingerprint and unique, and everybody's experience has been different, and therefore their interests are different, and yet at the root, there's that common human link where you can talk about something you're interested in. I can see that you're getting excited about it, and then I can share that happiness and that joy, and I can say, tell me more. I want to know why that makes you happy. I want to
Right.
share the experiences. And again, that's it. That's working on mental health. But we are all different, and yet we can all share our experiences.
Yeah. And all find ourselves at the same time.
Yeah, too right.
Let me ask you something. If anybody wants to find your podcast or find you on your socials, where could they find you?
It's Chatty Geek Hidden Dragon for everything. On Twitter, I'm Chatty Geek HD. But everything else, just if you look for Chatty Geek Hidden Dragon, you'll soon stumble across me somehow. And do get in touch as well. I'll respond to everything I get. So
Nice.
if you send me an email, I will respond. And yeah, just get in touch, join the community, and yeah.
I love that. And you seem like a person that generally, I think any clients that have the opportunity to work with you have a really great opportunity of opening themselves up to new type of therapy and really being able to learn about themselves and change themselves personally.
Yeah.
And I think that's incredible. And I really love that you're doing a podcast and you figured out a way of making it work for yourself and
Yeah, thanks.
cumulate, martial arts. So yeah, like anybody listening to this, be sure to check out your work. It's just incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Well, for anybody that's still here, if you manage to stay here this long, I hope you're not too high. Be sure to like and subscribe. You could find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Lost in the Groove Pod. So with that, we'll catch you on the next one. Stay groovy, my friends. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.